Good evening, everyone. I'm going to give it about 15 more seconds to let Zoom allow everyone to gather into the webinar as we prepare for the presentation tonight. So thanks in advance for being here. All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and get started. I see some folks will be joining us, and that's okay. I want to welcome you. My name is Ben Adams. I'm the Associate Dean of Students here at Duke and the Director of New Student Family Programs, and I want to welcome you to tonight's webinar. We're so glad that you're here and joining us. I know it is a busy summer for you as you prepare for your students' transition and the jump to Duke, and so we're providing these transition webinars over the course of the summer to allow you to have access to us and answer some of your questions, and hopefully so that we can provide a lot of information to ease that transition for you as much as possible. Again, I'm Ben, I'm the Director of New Student Family Programs, but we also have a couple of colleagues behind the scenes who are helping to answer your questions this evening as well. So thanks to our team here in this office for the work that they're doing. I want to give you just a couple of housekeeping pieces before I introduce tonight's webinar and also introduce our guests for the evening. I just want to remind you that number one, we are recording this webinar, and so this will be posted afterwards on our YouTube page. You can go back and watch all of the previous family and parent webinar series episodes or editions available on the YouTube page if that's something that you like, but we'll post this one as well. We're going to use the Q&A function that's available to you down in the bottom of your screen. If you click on that and use the Q&A, you can ask questions that will be there. We'll receive those questions, and we may respond to some of them via chat, just directly to you if we think that they are particular to your student circumstance. But we will also answer them at the end of the program after we have the opportunity to hear from our two presenters. Also, just so that I don't forget to announce this, I just want to remind you that next Wednesday night we'll be hosting another one of these webinars with our Associate Vice President for Student Engagement, Shruti Desai, and she'll be here to talk about the community life here at Duke. And so that will be next Wednesday, August 3rd. Again, we're so glad that you're here, and we're glad that you're joining us for this information session on the Trinity College of Arts and Sciences academic program. The purpose of tonight is to really help you as families and parents better understand the nature of the academic program offered in the Trinity College of Arts and Sciences, what your students can expect in their first year, how they can navigate the curriculum, how they can navigate some of the courses. And we are so delighted to have two incredibly important people in the life of Duke University, but particularly in the life of Trinity students. Our two guests for this evening are Dean Mohammed Noor and Dean Martin Smith. To give you just a little bit of information about them before I pass it off to them, I just want to share with you that Dean Noor is the current Dean of Trinity College of Arts and Sciences. He's a professor of biology who studies really genetic change and the way that it leads to the creation of new species. He has been a member of the faculty here at Duke in the Department of Biology since 2005, and he served as a chair of the department from 2013 to 17, and then before this position was the Dean of the Natural Sciences here at Duke. So he has both an understanding of the classroom really well, but also the 35,000-foot view of the university. So we're glad to be joined by him. He's a beloved faculty member who, as you will hear about in your students' time at Duke, who has won numerous awards, not only for his research in evolutionary biology, but just as important for his incredible teaching and his presence in the classroom. So welcome, Dean Noor. We're glad to have you with us. We also are joined by Dean Martin Smith. Dean Smith is the Dean of Academic Affairs for Trinity College of Arts and Sciences, and he's been in this role for the past couple of years. He's a professor in the education department here at Duke and teaches two of the most popular courses in the education department. One is an introduction to American education, and the other is an important conversation on racial identity and race and power in education. So He's here to share with us a little bit more about his understanding of the academic program here at Duke. Also of note to mention about him is that he leads our Duke's secondary teacher preparation program here at Duke, which is critical in equipping young minds to enter the classroom as well. So we're glad that he is with us. So thank you to both of you for being here. We're excited to have you with us. Again, parents and families, I'm going to encourage you to use that Q&A function as we begin this conversation. So let me just pass it off to both of them to provide some opening remarks about Trinity, about what Trinity is, kind of how they navigate it. And I'm going to pass it off to Dean Knorr first.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Ben, for that very generous introduction. I really appreciate it. I'm going to actually give kind of a long intro because we can anticipate what some of the questions are likely to be. So I'll try to hit some of them. And I'll tell you, one of the reasons I feel like we can anticipate what some of the questions might be is I am very much one of you all. My son is starting college this fall. In fact, tomorrow morning, I'm actually going to his college's version of exactly the same session. So I wish it was in the opposite order. I could have stolen good notes to share with you all. I'm just kidding. But I feel like I'm in the same place where you all. There's a lot of changes coming up. We're about to be, my wife and I are going to be empty nesters. My son and I go for walks every evening. We have lots of conversations about what college life may be like on these walks. So, I mean, I hear you, I see you, I feel what you're feeling too. So I'd like to start by just talking a little bit about what I feel that Duke and Trinity especially has to offer to your student. And then I'll go into a couple of specifics and I'll address some questions I think will come up. And then I'll pass the baton to my friend and colleague, Dean Smith, to elaborate on several of those points. So when we talk about Duke University, my predecessor, who was phenomenal, her name was Dean Valerie Ashby. She's gone off to be president at another university. She used to say that Duke offers a liberal arts education for every Duke student in a research environment. I'm going to say that again. It's a liberal arts education for every Duke student in a research environment. Now, let me elaborate like what I feel like that means. And I can give you some experiences from my family in this context. I went to a liberal arts college as a student. I did not go to a research university. The beauty of liberal arts colleges are you get a well-rounded education. You have a lot of really great interactions with faculty. I mean, you basically get that sort of attention and breadth of perspectives. However, I did a research project as an undergraduate, and I remember distinctly, it was for my senior honors thesis. I remember going to the library with a list of 30 published papers I was supposed to try to look up because I needed to cite them for my honors thesis. I found 2. The infrastructure for research at a lot of liberal arts colleges is not the same as what we have. Our resource is not just the library, but just the ability to do high-level research is just radically different. Counterexample, my wife went to a large state research university. So there she had a great infrastructure for research, any kind of research she wanted to do, like there was the facilities to do it. She and I went to visit the research group with whom she worked 4 years after she graduated. It wasn't even clear they remembered her. It was, again, what Duke has is the best of both worlds. We're offering, again, a liberal arts education, that broad perspective and individual attention for every Duke student in a research environment. So I hope that you're excited for what your student is going to be encountering very soon. And, they can be doing cutting edge research on, say the criminal justice system, or on Monet and the Impressionist movement, or on, curing some aspect of cancer. They can do that here at Duke and have that individual level attention and breadth of perspective. So let me talk a little bit about what happens when you're here, right? So we here at Duke will take on part of the jobs that you guys have been doing for your students, for your kids for the last several years, obviously not all of them. Let me talk a little bit about the faculty side, then I'm going to come back around and Dean Smith will fill in some of the other folks who contribute as well. We work alongside your students very closely. And when I say we work alongside, I don't just mean that like we have them in our classrooms, but I mean, we have a whole bunch of programs to get to know students very well. And that's very important because as your students are moving on to subsequent careers, they're going to need, detailed letters of recommendation that talk about not just what's the list of grades the student had, but like, tell us about the student, what excites them, what drives them, what are their things. And we do this all the time. So I have an undergraduate in my lab right now. Her name's Emily. We talk about research all the time. She's doing this particular project, related to genetics and evolution, as you heard, is the topic of my research. But, we also talk about like, what did you think of that finale of The Boys last week? Things like that. And she's a big fan. And, you know, so we share our lives together. And that's something that's really, really important for having that deep connection and really understanding the people behind just the, you know, the grades and things like that. And these are long-term connections. You know, I actually still hear from my undergraduate research advisor. I graduated 30 years ago. I still hear from him almost weekly. And the same thing works other ways too. I mean, I have a former undergraduate of mine who, you know, just called a couple of months ago, and we still keep in touch more regular than that, but she called a couple of months ago and we were both in tears because she just heard she got tenure at a research university herself. It was wonderful. I mean, these are lifelong connections we're going to have. We will be there for them in the context of learning the material. We'll be there in the context of their careers, and we'll also just contribute to their lives. Now, there are other people who contribute a lot in very important roles, and Dean Smith will elaborate on these. One very important one that I want to make sure you guys know about, so I'm going to reiterate it, and then Dean Smith can come back to it as well, are the academic deans. These are people who are assigned to your student in their first year, and they work with them all 4 years that they are at Duke, or however many years they're at Duke. So what these people do is they monitor their academic progress, they help administer and explain policy to them, they advise them on opportunities, they counsel them on problems. So these are very, very important people in the lives of your students. But there's an array of other resources. I won't go in depth on them, but we have an academic advising center to help students in terms of study skills. We have Trinity ambassadors, which are more senior students helping out. We have one that I do want you to encourage your students to see whenever they need, which is Counseling and Psychological Services, CAPS. It's been, as you all know, it's been a very tough couple of years for a lot of students. We've seen, like, and not just students, but and the faculty, staff, everybody, in terms of mental health challenges. CAPS is there for them. And, you know, when I was an undergraduate, I went to the equivalent of CAPS at my school. There's no shame to it. We need to make sure that there's no shame to seeking the help that they need. That's very important. We also have, you know, we have helplines. We have a wellness center, just more generally in terms of health. Talking about health, let's talk about COVID, because everybody always wants to know about COVID. I know people are kind of sick of COVID too, but they also want to know what the policies are on this. There's obviously a million opinions on what to do. Fortunately, we have an outstanding school of medicine here on site. We have world experts that can advise on how we deal with these things. I'm gonna give you a couple of examples. Back in fall 2021, let's rewind the tape to that. There's a lot of fear about the Delta wave just beginning. That feels like so long ago, right? And amidst that, we actually said, we're bringing everybody back to campus. And a subset of people were like, what are you doing? I can't believe you're doing that. The reason we were doing it is there were very severe mental health struggles we saw from students. We saw a dramatic loss of community. And we said we need to do this, but we need to do it safely. And we did. What we did is we had a very serious testing program. We instituted vaccination and mask mandates. And we didn't do these things arbitrarily. We did them because we had a school of medicine that advised us exactly how to do it. And it wasn't just the, you know, general advice, but they had these detailed mathematical models backing up that this is exactly the way to go. This is the frequency of testing to do. This is the benefit of this piece. And it worked beautifully. We had much smaller numbers of students getting sick than many of our peer schools. And my understanding is that almost none of them needed extreme help, or maybe actually none of them needed extreme help. Similarly, in spring 2022, we actually stopped mandatory testing for all, weekly mandatory testing for all students. Again, some people are like, what are you doing? Again, we have these detailed mathematical models that showed the speed of infection just made it no longer make sense. By the time you find out you're positive, you've already infected like half the people you're going to infect. We could have spent millions of dollars, but it would have been a complete waste of time. But again, it worked out very well. Like, we didn't have, you know, giant outbreaks that would have disrupted things, and we can react when things do go wrong. But importantly, we take scientific advice on these issues and we follow it. You know, we're using a data-driven approach through all this. So please trust that we're not being crazy. So that's all I'm going to say about COVID, unless you all had some specific questions on it. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on nitty-gritty of academic requirements, because these are all online. You can look up what the academic requirements are in terms of specific things. There's also a lot of resources to help your students, as I mentioned before, in terms of achieving all the academic requirements required for graduation. Like, again, the academic deans I mentioned, they have advisors, there's directors of undergraduate studies in various departments and more. But what I want to do before I pass the baton over to Dean Smith is I want to talk a little bit about one of the advantages of Duke, which is the blending of the curricular and the co-curricular at our school. I'm going to give you just a couple of examples. So we have a series of programs under this broader title called Humanities Unbounded. So this is a mix of undergraduate, so college students, and graduate education to explore broader questions in and out of the classroom. So it has classroom components, but also more broadly. So one really cool one that I love is called Black Music and the Soul of America. This is a great set of projects. It's supervised by 2 faculty from our School of Music. There's another one called Representing Migration. This has 5 faculty from English, and in that, students do research projects on representation and cultural expression of migration in literature, in music, in performance. So these are really like broad, interesting topics that they get a chance to dive into in the context of classroom work, but also research and exploration of themselves. We have another program that's similar. It's called Story Plus. This is run by our Franklin Humanities Institute. And they have small teams of maybe 3 or 4 undergraduates that actually get stipends, they actually get money for summer work on a public-facing humanities project that's grounded in interpretive methods. So each team has a grad student mentor and a sponsor, and that sponsor could be a faculty member. It could be somebody from Duke Libraries. It could even be somebody from outside of Duke, like from the Durham's Gear Street Cemetery. But again, they're doing research projects, and importantly, that we're providing excellent experiences for students. In this case, they even get money. In that particular case, that Story Plus program was partially inspired by a program from the natural sciences called Data Plus that was emphasizing quantitative data science techniques in the context of an array of research projects. So this is a case where the humanities took something from the natural sciences and applied it. In the other direction, the natural sciences, many of you have probably had physics classes or biology classes or chemistry classes from long ago. And I'll tell you, when I took my introductory biology in college, I hated it because it was all this just fact, memorize. And it just was not an efficient use. So something that some of your students may have encountered in high school and is becoming more common in college classrooms, is this idea of the flipped classroom. This has been normal in the humanities since day one. The natural sciences were a little bit slow to pick this up. The idea from that is the basics, like the facts you have to learn. Why don't you learn those outside the class time? So either from a book or from a video or something like that. And let's spend the classroom time doing discussions, problem solving, things like that too. This is something, again, this is a little bit newer for the sciences, whereas the humanities and social sciences have been doing this forever. So this is something that I've employed in the classroom now in my genetics and evolution course, where the students will watch these videos. And it's basically a video of me lecturing. It's what would have happened in the stereotypical class. But they do that when they're at home, because you know what? I don't have to be standing there when they're watching me just talk at them. Then when we have time together, we actually go over questions, we do problems together, and it's basically making the time that we have together as faculty and students more impactful. These are just some examples. This is something now where the natural sciences learn from the humanities. These are just some examples of the way we're trying to turn things around, and really how can we do the most effective things to teach your students and to actually have great rewarding time with them. We're always learning from each other. So before I pass the baton to Dean Smith, I'm just going to say 2 things. And one, I'm going to tell you the advice that we tend to give to students. And then I'm going to tell you after that, the advice that I have for you all and the requests I have for you all. So for students, we generally have 5 pieces of advice. The first one is interact with the faculty and staff as much as you can, right? And what we don't want students to do is we don't want students to say, I'm in college, I'm going to show up for class and then go back to my dorm and do my own thing. No, that's not good for us. That's not good for them. It's not good for anybody. We can and we will open doors for students, and often in ways that are not obvious. I'll give you an extreme example. I had a student once who was from Brazil, so not local, right? And she said she wanted to do research in a particular, I think it was in marine biology or something like that. I said, you know what? I have a friend of a friend who might know something. I was able to connect her, and she got a summer job in Brazil associated with this connection. You never know, right? And this is just from passing conversations. If she hadn't talked to me what she wanted to do over the summer, it wouldn't have come up. So very much I'm hoping students will reach out to us and see how we can help them throughout their careers. The second one is experimenting. Your student may think they want to know what they want to do, and they may be right. So my son, for example, is saying he wants to go into computer science. Okay, maybe so. Maybe he's going to major in computer science. Maybe not, but explore broadly. Because sometimes, you can, sometimes you might change your mind, but B, sometimes you can learn something really, really important from other areas. So when I was in college, I was a biology major and also biology and psychology. The class that inspired me the most, though, or second most, actually, there was a biology class that inspired me the most. The class that inspired me the second most, introductory philosophy. I can still remember so much from that class. And there's aspects of it that I've worked into my lectures, there's aspects that I've worked into my life. Inspirational. And you never know. I mean, this is the kind of thing that, again, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to change their direction, but open to other ideas and experiment. The third piece of advice is kind of the opposite, like don't stretch yourself too thin. Duke has so many things to do in terms of clubs, activities, co-curriculars. There's only 24 hours in the day. Get your sleep, get your relaxation, think broadly, but like don't pigeonhole yourself, but at the same time, don't overstretch yourself either. So there has to be balance in the system. Fourth is broadening your circle, meet different sorts of people, meet students, staff, meet locals, meet people you haven't met, and find people who are not like you. This is a great opportunity to learn from each other, including other students as well. So please do that. And the last one, and this is potentially one of the hardest ones, and faculty have this problem too, is beware imposter complex. Duke is a very, very difficult university to get into. This is very selective. I forget what our acceptance rate is, something like 4%, 5%. It's very low. Students sometimes think like, oh my gosh, did they make a mistake about getting me in? Did I fool them somehow? No, they absolutely did not fool us. Everybody at Duke belongs at Duke, period. So it's something that we will work on emphasizing it to them, but it's something we're going to be telling them. Now, I told you all those things, saying that was the advice for the students. My advice for you, don't worry about those things. I just want you to know what we're telling them. Don't worry about you reinforcing them. I just want you to know what they are, but you can reinforce them if you want. Two things I ask from you all. Number one, trust and believe we're doing our best for your student and for all students. Really, really, like we will treat them like they are our own. I promise you that. Again, like I'm with you. I have my kid going someplace else, and I have to trust that they're doing their best for him. The second one is, and this is especially important given, as I mentioned, the mental health challenges a lot of people are encountering right now. Please, 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 as much as you can, as often as you can, give your student encouragement and support, right? We can't do this for them as well as you can, because they look up to you more than they will ever look up to us. So please, please encourage them. And I don't mean helping just in the context of course selection. We're going to help with that. Give them the space and openings to talk with you. Spend time listening to them rather than telling them what they should do, and just offer support, mostly love, encouragement, and really acceptance of who they're growing into. That, as a parent, that's the single biggest thing you can do for any kid, but especially now in this time, that is absolutely vital. So with that, I'm going to pass the baton to Dean Smith. I'm not sure which side of the screen he's on from you guys, but I'll let him tell you a little bit more.
All right, that's great. Great stuff, Dean Noor. Thank you so much. So really excited to be here with you all today. Excited to get to speak with you all and then to get to know your children in the coming weeks. And also congratulations on your children being accepted to Duke. What a wonderful accomplishment. And I'm sure a culminating event of so much hard work. So welcome to the Duke family. We're really excited to be here with you. And before I start talking about the academic experience, I think I would be remiss if I didn't piggyback on what Dean Noor stated. We're very concerned about your children. We want them to grow intellectually, but we want to actually have them grow as better people and make sure they have a great experience. I don't have any children of my own yet, but I have 11 nieces and nephews, and one is a sophomore in college, and 2 are entering college this year, and the fourth is taking a gap year. And we've seen that they've experienced so many ups and downs in the last 3 years, I would say, due to COVID and just life changing. And we've had to put special emphasis on their growth and making sure they were okay. And we're committed to doing the same thing for your children. And if you have any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to email me, and I will make sure that we follow up with their academic dean. And I'll tell you a little bit more about academic deans. There are 2 Martin Smiths at Duke. There's a Martin Smith in the Nick School. Make sure you email Martin Smith in Trinity College or the program in education. But I'm going to jump into what goes on in the classroom and share a little bit about my teaching experience at Duke, which started in 2016. So when you enter a Duke classroom, it's pretty phenomenal. You're going to encounter students from every state in the union. Typically, we have every state represented. Every once in a while, we'll miss one of the Dakotas. So literally every state. We have students from all over the world. In my own classroom, I've had students from Peru, from Mexico, Kenya, South Africa, Vietnam, Italy, Germany, Puerto Rico, England. And so you just have all of these students in the same classroom discussing ideas, thinking about different ideas, challenging each other, and thinking about what does their education look like, and just providing different perspectives. You're also going to hear over 40 different languages spoken at Duke. So just imagine what a classroom looks like, feels like, sounds like at Duke. And in many of these cases, you're going to have small learning environments. So we pride ourselves on having small learning environments. And it's not just lip service. That's actually baked into the curriculum. So when students enroll at Duke, they're expected to take a specific number of small seminar classes where they're engaging with faculty, they're engaging with their peers, and it's based on discussion. So students are all going to experience that. And so when I think about my Education 101 class, you've got a myriad of different students. You have all of these different languages, different perspectives, but my class also aligns with service learning. And so what does that mean? Students are actually going into the community. They're tutoring, they're mentoring, or they're just observing what is going on in classrooms throughout Durham. And so what happens is what they're seeing in the community coalesces what they're learning in the classroom, what they're reading, what they're covering in terms of the curriculum. And we're very intentional with that. And that's just specifically my class. But I think about our other professors. I think about Professor Digsby in evolutionary anthropology. She takes her students to the Lemur Center. Then I think about another wonderful professor, Professor Sarah Gaither. She's in PNN. She runs an identity lab. And so she has students not only thinking about identity in the classroom, but many students also find work in her lab, paid internships, where they're actually studying how biracial identity is conceptualized. So you have all of these wonderful things going on at Duke. And I don't have enough time to tell you about everything, but there's so much going on. Okay. So we're just so excited for you to learn about that and your students to experience that. Dean Noor gave you some examples and some things that he wants you to think about as your students enter Duke. I want to give you 3 things. Number 1, students have to work hard, but they're here at Duke for a reason. We know they work hard. We know that they're smart, but I like to set that as a baseline. And I tell students this as well. But number 2 is, I don't think working hard is enough, because everybody who comes here is really intelligent and is here for a reason, just as your student is. So tap into the resources. There's tutoring. This may be the first time that your student isn't the top of their class or in the top 5. There are going to be brilliant students from all over the world. So we're going to encourage your student to immediately tap into resources such as tutoring. The Thompson Writing Program offers writing support. Go to office hours. There are things called Flunch and vLearn. But we just want them to hit the ground running in terms of that. The third thing that I'm going to say, and this really is so important for parents, students need encouragement. They need encouragement. I don't care if your son or daughter was the valedictorian of their high school. I've seen it at Duke. I've seen it happen time and time again. They get to Duke and they're surrounded by all these bright students. Now, that doesn't mean your son or daughter doesn't belong here, because they do. They were selected for a very specific reason. But sometimes this is an uncomfortable and new setting. So they need encouragement. They need to be reminded that they belong. They need to be encouraged to work hard, that what they did in high school was beautiful, and we want to celebrate that. But it's almost like you're starting over. And students need to be reminded of that. Also, please celebrate their accomplishments. Sometimes because they've succeeded so much in life, people just expect that. We do have high expectations, but there's nothing like celebrating our students. They love that. So just please remember that as you move forward in your Duke journey. So I threw some different acronyms at you and just information, but I'm going to talk briefly about the advising experience at Duke, and everything is going to center around academic deans. There's right now, we have a couple academic deans on leave, but there's approximately 15 academic deans. Every student, as they enter Duke, is assigned an academic dean. And Dean Noor mentioned this, but I want to reiterate it. The academic dean will progress with your child for 4 years or for their time at Duke. And the goal of the academic dean is to make sure your student graduates and to help them interpret policy. If they need to drop a class, if they need to add a class, your academic dean is your go-to person. Okay, I think I saw in the Q&A, somebody said, well, how do we find our academic dean? If you don't know who your academic dean is, tell your student to log into Duke Hub, and Duke Hub will have the information of who their academic dean is. If you still can't find your academic dean, send me an email and I will connect your student with their academic dean. So you have your academic dean. Also, when you enter Duke, you're given an advisor, okay? So you have a pre-major advisor who will go with you until you enter your major. Once you enter your major, you'll have a major advisor. Also at Duke, we have something called DAEs, Directors of Academic Engagement. Your student can meet with the Director of Academic Engagement at any time. And we have Directors of Academic Engagement who represent the social sciences, the natural sciences, and the humanities, okay? Then somebody also asked, I think in the chat, what about graduate school or business school? We have a pre-business advisor who's also one of our academic deans, a pre-law advisor who's also an academic dean, pre-graduate school, and pre-health advising as well. And those are all academic deans as well. So I know I'm throwing a lot at you. You don't have to remember all of this. All you need to remember is academic dean. And if you need any of this information, have your student reach out to the academic dean and they will connect you. I like to think of our academic deans as the fulcrum of the university or our connectors. They essentially know everything. They know a little bit about the faculty side, they know the staff side, they know advising. They have all of the resources for your students. So that connects me to the next piece that I want to cover. Students will have great times at Duke. They will struggle at Duke. And as Mohammed or Dean Noor mentioned, we have not directors of academic engagement, but we have CAPS, so counseling and psychological services. If students need support in that way, they'll go to their academic dean, and their academic dean will not provide that, but they'll connect them, because students often say, I need this support, but I don't know who to go to. Go to your academic dean, they're a connector. Students may also need accommodations for different disabilities. Go to your academic dean and they will connect you with the SDAO office. So Student Disability Access Office. Once again, you don't need to remember the acronym, just go to your student's academic dean. We have Do Well, which is an organization on campus that helps students manage anxiety and stress. Once again, go to your academic dean and they'll connect you to Do Well. We have Blue Devils Care, which is a 24/7 hotline for students who are struggling. If you're struggling, call that line. And I know in the past, there were often, how do I want to frame this? Sometimes people look down on mental illness, or we would look at students who are struggling, but we have seen this across the board. And I've seen this even with, as I mentioned, my nieces and nephews going to college. They're experiencing a whole new set of, I would say, issues or problems that I didn't have to deal with. I didn't miss my prom because of a worldwide pandemic. I didn't miss my graduation. I wasn't separated from my friends. And so as they're managing those things, we see students who struggle, and we're honest and upfront about those things. And so Blue Devils Care is a great hotline to call. It's also great for students to connect with peers and to stay in contact with you. The last thing that I will share, and I want to open it up to questions, or if Dean Noor, if I missed anything, please pull me back in and make sure that I've covered everything on my list, is Flunch, vLearn, and office hours. And you may be saying, what the heck is that? Flunch is one of the coolest things at Duke. Flunch stands for Faculty Lunch. And so students are actually earmarked, I believe it's $70 per semester, to meet with and eat lunch with faculty members. All you have to do is apply for the money, which is already exists, and you can have lunch with a faculty member. It's one of my favorite things to do. And it's up to 4 students to eat lunch with a faculty member at anywhere on campus of your choice. Faculty love to do it. And that's a great way to build relationships with faculty in organic ways. vLearn is a virtual learning experience. So typically when you do a flunch, it's with a professor who you're taking their class, but not always. But vLearn, if you look up vLearn, is an opportunity for students to connect with faculty who have identified themselves and said, hey, look, I love meeting with students. My name's on the list. Literally, my name is on the list. And I like to meet with students. So if you want to hear about my research, my experience, how I came to have a PhD in education and be a professor and a dean, come meet with me and I'll tell you about my journey. And my name is on that list, and students reach out and they say, hey, I want to sit down with you, Dean Smith. The last one is office hours. I think this is one of the lesser used opportunities for students, but it's extremely powerful. Dean Noor talked about some of his mentors, and he talked about a mentor from 30 years ago. I took a class, this is dating myself, my first undergraduate class was in 2002. And it was this phenomenal class where this professor, we came into class and the questions that he asked, the way he presented readings and made us think and made us write just had my head spinning. And that's what really made me think, hey, I want to be an educator. Well, let me tell you this. That professor from 20 years ago has written every single one of my letters of recommendation. He gave me advice. He's given me advice on every job that I've secured. He helped me prepare for my interviews at Duke. We still talk monthly. We present at conferences together. And that all started from me taking his class and really enjoying it. It's like, I got to get to know this guy. I got to ask him about his background. How did he start teaching in this way? I've never met a teacher like this who's so engaging and dynamic. And I went to his office hours, and I spent 4 years at UC Berkeley, constantly going to his office hours, constantly getting to know him. And that was a life-changing experience. And so what we encourage your students to do from day one, get to know the faculty members. Faculty at Duke want to know your children. And once again, we're just so excited for you to be here and to get to know your students. So I'm going to pass it back to the group. And yes, just thank you. And we're so excited to meet you and to have your students here.
That was wonderful, Martin. I have to echo Martin's thing on Flunch. Oh my God, that program is the best. And actually the example, the Brazil example, like I told you, that actually came out at a Flunch. And to be clear, the Flunch things don't have to be one-on-one. It could be a small group of students. I had one student who had like 6 lunches with me over the semester. Because what she would do is every time she'd ask another friend to invite me to lunch, and then she'd come too. So not necessarily advising gaming the system, but just FYI.
Thank you so much, Dean Noor and Dean Smith. This is incredibly helpful, and you guys covered a lot of information that was there. But as a Duke alum, I graduated in 2008, and your comments about just the nature of the classroom, the nature of faculty engaging with students. Dean Noor, you spoke about blurring, kind of the lines blurring between not just academic areas, but also between the academic experience, but also what takes place kind of in general campus life. And that was true from my experience. Particularly a class that I adore was a class that kind of blended all different areas. It was called the South in Black and White. And it was with 50 students from Duke, 50 students from North Carolina Central, which is one of our neighboring students in a historically Black college and university, and then 50 residents from Durham. And it was a large 150 person, almost like revival-like class that where you got to know people outside the classroom and outside of the Duke community. So beautiful ways in which which Duke does a great job of blurring the lines. And then Dean Smith, you talked about the resources that are available to Duke. There are endless resources available to Duke students to nurture them and care for them and the life of the mind, but also just the general well-being and wellness at Duke. And so our hope is that in answering some of these questions that we can point you to those, recognizing that these resources are available to students and they're at their fingertips. It's just knowing how to find them is going to be pretty important for the student to learn. And we hope to point your student in that right direction. So which leads me to one of the first questions that I'm seeing here in the Q&A. One of the questions is about the dean and academic advisors, all of these resources available. Maybe you can shed a little bit light about how how they can get in touch with these people. Is it something where the deans and the academic advisors reach out to students, or is it something that students should be reaching out to the deans? And I can let either of you take that first question.
You want to take
Right.
the first stab, Dean Smith?
Okay.
I have
Yeah.
some thoughts too, but you please go first.
Okay, definitely. Yeah, so that's a great question. For academic advisors, the academic advisors typically should reach out to your students or your son or daughter, but if in the case that they don't, please have them reach out. But with academic deans, there isn't going to be the same interaction for first years. There might be a mass email, but it won't be personalized, because you have to remember, or you don't know this, but academic deans have a caseload of approximately 400 students that they're working with for 4 years. Academic advisors have a much, much smaller portfolio. They might have 5 to 10 students. Some might have as little as 3 students. So it's a different experience, but reach out to the academic deans if they have any questions. You can find them on Duke Hub. If they haven't heard from their academic advisor, reach out, but they should have heard from their academic advisor. I hope they have.
So let me add one thought. Sorry, I agree with everything Dean Smith said. I'm going to add an extra aspect to it too. This is something, again, a liberal arts college for every Duke student in a research environment. Your student can reach out to any faculty member. They don't have to reach out just to somebody who's assigned to them as their academic advisor, things like that. So there was another question in the chat just about how soon can they get more major specific advising. I mean, students write to me all the time who are just at Duke. They're not my students. They're not assigned to me as advisor. They're like, hey, can I come meet with you? I'm interested in what I saw on your webpage that you do. I want to talk about like what I'm going to be doing here and trade stories. The answer is always yes. Yeah, I mean, we love doing this. This is actually why we took these jobs. We want to have these kinds of interactions with students. It doesn't have to be through this formally assigned means. Yeah, obviously, some people are going to be busy at certain times, so you might have to hit like a couple of different people sometimes, but I mean, we love doing that kind of thing. So please, if your student, wants advice on something, they're absolutely welcome to reach out to their academic dean and their advisor, but they should really reach out to any Duke faculty member that they want, particularly in arts and sciences. I mean, that's what we're here for.
I remember my freshman year in the fall, I sent a panelist in a classroom. There was a group of panelists that were there, and they were all faculty members of Duke. And one I just connected with in a way of just appreciating what he said. So I just sent an email thanking him, and I was caught off guard because he invited me to lunch as a result of just thanking him for being there. And I had no idea why a faculty member would be inviting me to lunch. And then for the course of the lunch, for about 50 minutes of it, it was just getting to know me and getting to know my academic interests. And that just speaks to the level of engagement I think the faculty are willing to go above and beyond to connect with students. Great, those are great answers, and we hope that is helpful to the parents who ask those questions. One of the questions that also seems to come up for students, and Dean Smith, you might be able to answer this, is how students are facing right now in this first year. They're registering for classes, and some of these classes are starting to fill up, and they're starting to fill up in a way that, does that redirect students to take the class later? What should they do, and who should they reach out about that concern?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. First and foremost, I would say don't panic. There's a vast array of classes that you can take at Duke. And I know students often come in with a set mindset or a state, I'm going to take this amount of classes, I have this plan. But really, what we want students to do is explore. And so you can share with your academic dean, and I would say immediately say, look, this is the class I really want to take. I'm interested in taking it, but I haven't been able to get in, because we want to document that, and we want to know specifically what students are trying to get into. And if there isn't access, we want to know that. But by the same token, there are other classes. Those classes will open up. First years may have a later registration than second, third, and fourth years. Next semester classes will open up. There's also an ebb and flow of students who enter and leave classes within the first week. So first years may not have priority registration compared to other students, but don't panic, don't worry. Students in their time at Duke, we make sure students get the classes that they need to graduate. But share it with your academic dean. They'll follow up with the student and say, look, these are the different options that you have. And they're going to share a similar message. Don't panic. And often that creates the greatest opportunity for exploration. And you find another class that you may have not thought that you were going to like. And it may change your career trajectory. We see that often with students.
That's right. Thank you, Dean Smith. One of the questions is related, and Dean Noor, I'll kind of maybe punt this to you, is some students come in and they are set that they are going to go the pre-health track, or they're going to go the pre-law track or pre-business, and that is where they're going. Others, however, are coming in with a little bit more of a, I'm not sure what it is that I love, and I feel maybe behind the 8 ball on, I don't know if I'm going to go pre-health. Do you have advice for them on how advisors interact with those students, maybe from both camps, from both the set in a certain way versus those who are kind of jumping back and forth between options or exploring their options?
Yeah, the very first thing is it'll be okay. I promise you it'll be okay. That's the very first thing they should come away with. It shouldn't be, oh my gosh, my friends all know they want to be pre-med, pre-law, or majoring in art history. Like, it doesn't have to be that. It's totally fine. I mean, part of what we have with liberal arts education is we ask students to take a wide range of classes. Associated with that, there, you'd have a class in art, literature, and performance, a natural science class, a social science class. You have to do this exploration. It's built into the system. Often what students do is that's what a lot of the first 2 years is basically going through and sampling some of these classes. And that gives them time to develop these ideas. They don't have to know in the first semester, first year, even second year. It's okay. And people very often change their minds. It's not uncommon at all where somebody is coming in saying, I want to be pre-med, and then actually blood makes me squeamish or whatever. they move on and they say, I'm going to be a music major after all. It's fine. And you can do it. I mean, you have to work with your advisor, you have to work with your academic dean. They'll plot out, okay, my current plan is this, and plans change. I mean, I've seen people change majors junior year sometimes too, and they make it work. It'll be okay.
Great. Thank you, Dean Noor. Dean Smith, earlier you spoke a little bit about how all of our students are strong and hardworking students. There are some students who want to know what is the threshold or the limits of how many courses that they can take in a semester. Do you have advice about the course load maximum,
Right.
What is the maximum they can take, but also how they might navigate that maximum? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a great question. I think it's important for students to meet with their advisor and their academic dean to think about what makes sense for them. What courses are you taking? Because every student is going to be different. Are you taking all natural science courses? Are you balancing your courses? Are some of those courses, is one of those courses a workout course? Is it a music course? And not saying that one of those courses or some of those courses are less rigorous, but you're just exercising different parts of the brain and different energies and activities. But typically, and I want to make sure that I'm stating this correctly, is for first years, I don't believe you can take more than 4 courses. But if you want to take more than 4, we sometimes allow a half credit course. Students will enroll in a music course, an acting course, performing course, an exercise course. But to be approved to do that, you have to meet with your academic dean. And so if you've come up to that registration block, and don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure, I'm 95% sure it's 4 credits, you're not going to be able to go past that. Your second and third and fourth year, you can, but as a first year, you can't. But your academic dean can actually remove that block, but they have to have a conversation with you first. Great question.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think that there is more information on what we call overloading at Duke. That's kind of the language that you will hear in terms of taking more than what the normal course load is. And I think that you're exactly right, Dean Smith. There is the opportunity to take that early on. It's less so your first year, because we recognize that there are other adjustments that you are making both academically in your first year and you are making socially in your first year. And so as a buffer to your student in their first year of moving into this new home, both academically and just socially, we want to make sure that your student is creating that space, and will lessen the load for you in that first year. Great. And additional questions. One of the questions I think about is about the classroom and the way in which they engage with students, or way in which faculty engage with students. And I'm wondering, can you tell a little bit more about maybe the academic life beyond the classroom, for opportunities that are available here on Duke's campus? Like a little bit more about maybe not particular courses is what I'm hearing from this one question, but how faculty engage academically with the whole community.
So are you asking about like co-curriculars and things like that? Is that what you
Yeah.
had the question?
Yep.
Okay, got it. Yeah. So I mean, there's The answer is there's so many different ways in terms of how we do this. I mean, you heard about some of the informal, more social things already, like, you know, things like Flunch and things like that. There are programs in terms of just interactions. There's also some programs where dorms will sometimes invite a faculty member to come and chat with them, you know, on site about, you know, whatever they're interested in. It could be something about their research, it could be something about their courses, it could be just some topic that they're interested in, something from the news, something from, you know, whatever. There are, of course, an array of research possible experiences. So we have programs, there's one called BAS Connections, which are these, you know, interdisciplinary teams of people that involve a mix of faculty and graduate students and undergraduates all working together on some particular problem, trying to solve them. You know, and again, there's a wide range of these. Sometimes they're more, like, say, neurobiology focused. Sometimes they're more racial justice focused. I mean, there's a wide range of these things. I mean, really, when your student gets here, they're going to be flooded with possible ways of interacting with us. The big thing, as both Dean Smith and I emphasize, is make sure they take advantage of a decent number of them, but not stretch themselves too thin. And again, there's also clubs and things like that. We often speak at clubs all the time. They'll always invite us, say you know, I don't know if this one exists, I'll just make it up, but, you know, the Foreign Language Honor Society, I don't know if that is a thing, but they'll invite faculty to come talk about things. So there's a wide range of doing things in terms of research, in terms of, oh, actually, one thing I wanted to mention in terms of research, if you're interested in a research experience, there are a lot of ways to pursue it. There's a program called MUSER. I think that used to stand for something, but it doesn't anymore. MUSER is what it's called. If your student is interested in getting into research right up front, there will be opportunities posted on the website for MUSER where they can, you know, immediately apply to work with a faculty member in any discipline to do some research with them. And I encourage students to look at that. However, if your student doesn't see an opportunity in that, but is really interested in something, let's say, I'll pick one that's close to my heart. You know, I'm a biologist. I remember an undergraduate named Ken Hain who wrote me I think it was before the first week of classes. He wrote me this email saying, I've been reading Dawkins and Gould, and I'm really excited about evolutionary biology. Let me tell you, I got that guy in my lab before he could blink. He was phenomenal. That guy, this is a Duke student. He published 3 first author science publications before he finished his undergrad. He went off with a scholarship to Oxford University. He's now doing his own thing. But this shows how amazing many of our students are, just as one example.
Right. I want to jump in. Those are phenomenal examples. And I love what Dean Noor shared, because that really embodies what a lot of faculty do. They love to see students who take the initiative. I want to share a few resources with you. So I mentioned DAEs, Directors of Academic Engagement. They actually have like a menu of all of the different opportunities at Duke that exist within the natural sciences, the humanities, and the social sciences. And that's their whole job, is to connect students and meet with students and to share what's going on at the university. And I think about my own experience here teaching at Duke. I took a group of students to Boston through Duke Engage, which was a phenomenal, I think it was a 6-week experience where students worked or interned at a nonprofit, and then they had class with me once a week. We also took a group of students through Duke Immerse to India. We went to Pune, India, and students spent, 2 weeks student teaching in Indian schools. And so that was a phenomenal experience. But if students are looking for that information, you want to connect with the directors of academic engagement. And so just send them an email and say, hey, can I get on your calendar? Can I schedule a meeting with you? And they're just going to share this menu of options, and they'll help you curate what experiences are best for you, depending on your skill set, your academic background, your passion, your purpose, and really help you identify where you should be. Because as Dean Noor mentioned, there are so many things here that it's just too much to do. So you want to figure out what is the best fit, not a good fit, but what is a great or best fit for you, and then to jump on those opportunities.
Thank you, Dean Smith, and thank you, Dean Noor, for your reflections on these. I'm going to ask one last question here that we see in the chat, and then I'm going to ask you for final thoughts. So the last question that we have is from someone who's interested in wondering how parents and families can engage in their academic students' success and just stay informed and stay connected. What do you think are best practices for that for parents?
I'm going to reiterate a point I made earlier. I mean, I think the best thing you can do for your student is just to constantly offer support, offer them an ear and things like that. I don't advise, and I'm going to do this as a parent too. And I know it's hard because I mean, we've had our children here in our homes for so long. I know it's hard. You know, if your student tells you they're struggling, talk to them about that. But I don't advise going into the whole, like, you know, what are your grades? What are you doing? Like, I feel like that's going to backfire. Just speaking as a parent, I feel like that's not going to go over well. Just offer support, tell them, we're here for you. And again, you heard what some of the resources are. You can reiterate some of the resources that we've mentioned, particularly, again, you've heard it many, many times. I'll say it again. The academic deans, they're one-stop shop for what you need. But beyond that, just be there for them. I think it's the biggest thing you can do as a parent right now.
Great. Thank you, Dean Norm.
Yeah.
Were you gonna say something? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll jump in really quickly. Offer support, encouragement. You can't really ask for their grades. Obviously, you can ask your student for their grades, but every blue moon will have a parent who say, I need to see my student's grade. Well, there are some rules and regulations related to FERPA where we can't actually release their grades. Now, if your student signs something, then we can. So just know that, but encourage them to access the resources that exist and just be a listening ear and be present for them.
Awesome. Thank you both. I want to give you the opportunity to just offer a final thought, if you'd like, on any topic, and maybe just a word for families in these last few weeks before their students transition to Duke on August 20th.
Want to go first, Dean Smith?
Yeah, I'll jump in first. So a few things, and I'm going to be quick. Congratulations. Welcome to Duke. We're so excited to have you and your student here. And if anything happens, if you're ever just terrified, worried, stressed, send me an email and I will find the right person to connect your student with if it's not me connecting with them or connecting an academic dean with them. So you can look me up, send me an email. We're really serious about this. We care about your students and we want to make sure that students adjust and acclimate to this university and have a successful and fun time here. So yeah.
Thank you, Dean Smith.
I'm just going to echo what Dean Smith said. I mean, we're so honored that your student has chosen to join us. I mean, they're going to be part of our community and we couldn't be happier. We couldn't be more excited to work with them. We couldn't be more excited to just learn alongside them. I mean, I feel like I learned just about as much from my students as they learn from me every semester. We love it. We love them. We'll take care of them. I promise. We'll do our best and trust that it all will be well.
Well, again, I want to thank Dean Noor and Dean Smith for spending the evening with us and answering a lot of questions. I know we can't see you, parents and families, but I know that you were giving them a silent round of applause for their contributions. Know that just a couple of quick reminders, just logistics as we wrap up. Again, we will post this online. So if you wanted to go back and hear what it was that Dean Noor said about a particular place or where Dean Smith was pushing you and encouraging you to check out in terms of a director of academic engagement, you can go look at that. Also be aware that next Wednesday on August 3rd, we're going to be hosting Associate Vice President for Student Engagement, Shruti Desai, to talk about the community life here at Duke. So that's all. Again, thank you for joining us, and we will see you and your students in a few short weeks. Thanks for being here, folks. Have a good night.